first serve basis. Important to note that this is a board level decision. All right. In the next slide, we have, I'm ready. In the next slide, we have our building capacities and utilizations, and there's a chart there that kind of shows you what that looks like. So as a reminder, these are the capacity limits for our schools by level and the current registrations. And these are projections from Davis Demographics, which we generally use each year to make this decision. Okay, so inter-district transfers into elementary, what this looks like. So first, here is our look at our proposal for incoming students. We'd like to open 80 elementary slots for incoming transfers. This would include 30 kindergarten and 10 slots. You're missing a page. Okay, so it's, okay, 30 kindergarten in elementary, and then 10 per grade in grades 1 through 5. And then students will be assigned a school based on capacity at that school building. And then siblings will be kept together. So that's elementary proposal.
And so when I'm looking at the projections for 2033, obviously that's more important at the elementary level, because if they're starting kindergarten here or whatever, they've got the 10-year, right? So how did you come up with that number? Because with the amount of development that's going on, I mean, just in the existing builds alone, you've got 1,800. So you projected only roughly 120 more with the massive amount of development that's going on in Sherwood in elementary enrollment?
So Davis Demographics did this projection for us, and I am going to let Gary speak to this question, because he went through the report.
Yeah, I just don't want to like
that's a great
overextend, you know?
Absolutely.
Davis Demographics did not include in this any of the Sherwood West area. That's why. So if you look at our enrollment trend, it actually goes up and comes back down, because they only look at things that are highly likely to be developed in the next 5 years. And so as of the time this report was issued, it wasn't even in the urban growth boundary yet.
Right. But there's a lot of other developments that are underway that could significantly change that number. There's projects that are underway that were not Sherwood West, but that were brought in as part of the expansion. So I guess I just feel concerned a little bit about that low of a number for a 2033 projection. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think that it would be worth looking at, maybe with the city at permits, what exists out there, and because there's a lot of them, and especially in this area, and how that's truly, I mean, I'm sure they took that into account. They had to have, right?
Well, they acknowledge that they essentially acknowledge that number is likely low, and when Sherwood West and others come in, in fact, they even tell us they can really be somewhat accurate in a couple of years out from their forecast, and the further away from the forecast date we get, the less accurate it becomes. And so a number 10 years out is, especially in a situation like ours where you have a lot of development,
right?
It's pretty tough to project.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so you said 80 students for the elementary levels?
80 total, yes.
Okay.
All right. If you could get to the middle school slide, I think it's 2 there. That's it. All right. So those are great questions, and we can look into that, right?
Well, we can look. I just don't know that we can come up with a number.
Yeah, I mean, 80 now is fine, right? But I think that going forward, when we're talking about inter-district transfers and bringing kids in, we're gonna have to really watch that because, well, not we, I won't be here, so you guys will have to really watch that. Because you don't want to have, an explosion situation like has happened in the past here. And, there is a lot of development that's going on, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think to add in, we are meeting actually later this week with the city to discuss this and kind of existing what's going on.
Yeah.
And then also, that's not even the Sherwood West.
Yeah,
to your
this, I'm
point.
not even talking Sherwood.
So I think one of the things that in this, for this plan for you as the board who does get to set this is a yearly decision. So
Yeah,
these
right.
numbers, numbers that are matching what you approved last year.
Right,
And to your point, we have to be cautious as a district to say, okay, great, here was a projection, but the reality is this. and
correct.
That's what we need to talk through.
Yeah,
One of the things that we are seeing and hearing from folks around with some of the developments, it is a smaller number of folks with school age children than in the past that have moved in to homes in general in Oregon. And so that's just something that's impacting demographers. Again, it just has made it trickier for their position. But
Yeah.
for us, we're looking at permits, we're looking at the real feel, we're looking at we have kids enrolling today that are coming, that have moved into new builds. And you're spot on, and there's nothing, this is not the Sherwood West conversation, that's
Right.
separate.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it, and I think it's good for our team to be aware. These were just numbers that were approved a year ago. As well, the last couple of years, same numbers.
yeah, because there's just a lot of, there's a lot of, there's a promise that was made, yes, there's the capacity, but there is a commitment to a certain size classroom. And we want to make sure that we're sticking within those. So,
I just want to clarify, we're not filling those numbers just because they're available doesn't mean that we're filling them every year, correct?
No, we haven't historically filled at every grade level every year, certainly not our kindergarten numbers this year. Sherwood hasn't, how many years have we actually opened up slots? You would know that information.
We've opened up slots a majority of the years since this law passed. We were before the pandemic, when especially at the high school, we had capacity issues. We didn't, except for very specific situations like charter school kids who've done their whole K-8 career potentially or something along those lines. But we were pretty strict about it. But we've opened up more slots the past years, and I can't tell you exactly how many have been filled this year, but it's far less than we opened. And that has more to do with other districts around us just aren't releasing kids like they used to. And so this year we had a lot of kids apply, but I think about a third of the ones that applied were actually released by their home district.
Great questions. Okay, so at the middle school, the proposal is to add 40 slots for incoming students. And this would include 20 students at grade 6 and 10 students per grade for 7th and 8th. All right. And then the final proposal is for Sherwood High School with a total of 50 students. This would include 20 students for 9th grade and 10 students per grade for grades 10, 11, and 12. Okay, and then the last part of the proposal is how many students we would allow to be released from our district. And our proposal is that 0 students for outgoing transfer to other public institutions, educational institutions, so other school districts for next year. And that would not include any exemptions that would be made for hardships based on the definitions in HB 2747. And it also wouldn't include any students who were previously approved on outgoing transfers. Those students will continue through graduation in the district that they are currently in, which is not Sherwood.
so what are those hardship definitions?
All right. So HB 2747 defines hardships as the student is impacted by a parent or guardian's military deployment. The student is experiencing experiencing instability related to homelessness or foster care placement. The student has a documented medical condition that necessitates transfer. Death of a student's parent. The student does not have access to safe and affordable childcare in resident district. Or the student is involved in a documented case of severe harassment, intimidation, bullying, and cyberbullying. Those are the definitions.
Okay.
Questions?
Well, you know, at the numbers for the inter-district transfers, I agree with that. I wholeheartedly disagree with not allowing on those very boxed in perimeters, students to transfer out. I think that there's a multitude of reasons why that would fall under why a student would need to transfer out that may not fit that definition. When my kids were younger, I had to have them transfer out of a district for nothing that fell under those reasons. And had that district not released my students, it would have created some pretty severe problems for us. And I'm just one example of many that it couldn't even be that severe. I think if a student if they have their own situation or issues going on at the school that make them just plainly uncomfortable, they should have every right to choose where they go. If they want to go to a neighboring district, they should have every right to do that. They're still paying taxes in this district if they live here. And if they're making the choice to do that, then we shouldn't be the one to stop them. I mean, what we should be focusing on is being the district that creates and maintains an environment where kids don't want to transfer out, and we're, taking care of them in that way, which I believe that we are. But I certainly don't agree with hard stopping that under those. I just don't agree with that.
I appreciate it. I think just back up for a second for us, we bring as a recommendation and then the board.
For sure. Yeah,
gets
this is
to talk us-
discussion,
To
right?
talk
Yeah.
through. But for context,
Yeah.
4 to 5 years ago, the districts all kind of got together and were able to share.
Yeah.
As they were all experiencing declining enrollment,
Mhm.
folks said, hey, we are all going to be remaining open for releasing students to other districts. And that was kind of a general agreement. And you saw that
Yeah.
across the board from
Yeah.
everywhere in our county.
Yeah.
That had slowly shifted over the last 2 to 3 years. And this year in particular, we did a study of comparing to all of our surrounding districts, and all of them but one. And again, this is early, but they've all made this decision last year. They all went to 0 releases except for hardships.
Mhm.
That still did not. That still showed mobility with families. They did work through hardship agreements, or they made other arrangements, and people were still moving. But that it just for context of maybe
Mhm.
why we would bring that.
Yeah.
In the past, most districts were working kind of together on that to work through it. And you're right. We want families and students to have success. We want them to love to be here. We want all of that too.
Yeah.
So I don't want that to be a reflection of something that's not. I just wanted to let the group know that for context, it looks like we were the outlier. We were offering
Mhm.
30 when our neighbors and colleagues and friends they've now shifted to 0. And so that was more of that reflection, but it's again, a board conversation and board decision. And again, we get to make that on a yearly basis.
Yeah, and so that's great that they shift to 0, and then the people that can manage to do so, what they choose to do then instead is leave the community entirely and take their tax dollars with them. I understand that there is, which is even more detrimental to the district. So you get the per student allocation, but there's also the property tax piece. And so when you are forcing families to stay, then fine, okay, you're not going to allow me to move, then I'll buy a house and I'll move to the place that I want to be. And then it's a real lose-lose. And so I'm not saying that's every case that would happen, but I also don't think that because every other district is doing it, that means we have to do it. I don't necessarily agree with that either. And so, of course I want to be fiscally responsible, but I think that it works both ways in this particular scenario. I would not hesitate for 1 second if I were in a situation where I needed to move my kids and I didn't fall into that box, we would be out. And then buy would be the tax dollars and, also. So I just don't think that's right. I will happily vote for this action item if it's modified that is not, that 0 students out is not the policy. I just don't feel that that's right to do to families.
So I think last year when we looked at this, remember, it was too late. When we
Mhm.
looked at this and we were like, whoa, 30 kids, that's a lot. And it was too late. And so we are revisiting it like we said we would from last spring.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by every district aside from one, but they're revisiting that number from what I understand. Have all gone to 0 for fiscal reasons, obviously.
Totally. Yep. I see that.
I don't feel good about, I obviously want a community where we want our kids here. I don't feel good about opening the door and watching 30 kids walk out of the district when no one else will do the same for us. There's nobody else that would reciprocate.
But
that.
I don't care about making it right with other districts. I care about making it right for our kids.
But
and
that's
our
why we did
families.
it in the first place. Everyone had 30, 20, whatever it was, because we're all trying to
Okay.
play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But-
now no one's trying to play nice in the sandbox.
Well,
anymore.
for me, it's not about me playing nice in the sandbox with another district. For me, it's about doing what's right for the individual families that might be in the scenario that need this. And if, it's great. If every other district is doing it, that's completely their prerogative. But I'm not one of those people. I never will be. So that's not going to be an argument that sways me for this. I feel like you have to do what's right for individual families, truly. So I agree with capping it. I don't think when we have capped it, we've never met that cap, right?
Oh, we have every year, right?
We've met the cap every year.
We
What was
generally
the
have,
highest cap that we've had? I know
30.
that would be probably a hard one.
I think 30, right?
30?
30's been our biggest, but I think we did expand it one year by a few kids, but it's been a number of years since we did that. But we generally, if we open 30, we generally hit it,
Okay,
and generally fairly quickly.
okay, all right. Well, that's too bad, but I guess that's um that's something that's hard to swallow, but I should suppose that could be something that we evaluate. Why is that happening? Obviously I know some of the reasons that the sports stuff, whatever, but I don't think that doing a hard line is right. I just don't think that that's fair. So,
Krista, I actually agree with you.
wow, I cannot believe that. Is this on record? This is amazing.
It's being recorded somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna like allow, or we're gonna accept what is that gonna be, 170 students potentially coming in, and we're gonna say 0 going out. That feels real not like we're playing nice in the sandbox. And you
With
can-
our families.
And you
yeah.
can tell me that, oh, that's what, Tiger Walden's doing, that's what Newburgh's doing, that's what Lake Oswego's doing, maybe, I don't know. I kind of want to see that list and see that they're all gonna accept 170 students, but they're not gonna accept 0 out. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like the way you run a business, right? You wouldn't
Right.
do that. And for all the reasons that Chris actually articulated, the hardship definition gets real narrow, and it makes me a little bit nervous to not have that more clearly explained, why we would say an absolute hardship of 0. Now, I get the idea, the protectionism, I get it. We're all looking at enrollment, we're going, oh my gosh, enrollment's going the wrong way. I get it. But I don't think you just put a giant, protectionist wall on something to say that's how we fix that. I do feel uncomfortable about it. I'm
Thank you.
sorry, I know that's not what everyone wants to hear, but.
I think that we work to find other solutions, truly, instead of putting a hard wall, because there are families that need this, and I'm not going to be the one to vote to stand in their way of that.
I mean, do we have a list of what these other districts are doing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. I didn't bring the summary
I
with
mean,
me,
I am
but,
pragmatist, but.
I would suggest also, is there, because we're also missing 2 more board members, do we feel like this is something we should table until March 10th?
Well, I want to bring it back to to you to let you know, like, so this is, part of, you know, it started last year with your conversation, and part of your board conversation last year is you felt like it was too late. So we were trying to do our due diligence and be early with the conversation and try to be proactive with us. And we want to be very clear, like, this is your call. We work and care, and we don't want to see any student want to leave.
Mhm.
And so for us, we're also not trying to make things like life more difficult for a family who's needing to say, hey, I want to do something different than them. But we just want to be responsive to being fiscally responsible, talking this through. I understand. I want to be clear, like on our end, we stand ready to serve and want to be a part of this. So for us, we just wanted to bring it earlier because I think that was an ask that I had from our board leadership earlier in the summer, which is great. I think this conversation should be occurring now. And it is something I will share that superintendents, we talk about this. We talk about how that feels, how it looks, how it sounds. We brought this up, especially for those last couple of years where we've been that district who has released to other districts, and some of their conversations, they do feel badly about if they've had the hard policy that they won't let families release. So that's why we brought it to you when we did. I just wanted for context from last year, because you all felt like last year, according to that board meeting, it was too late. You were stuck. You didn't have the proper conversation. So we wanted to get early, and we are well versed and well served to continue doing a practice, to adjust a number, to table it. This is your call.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, I don't think that we're in agreement, right? From the sounds of it. We can't not vote on it. It is an agenda item. So there isn't any reason that we can't vote on it or propose a modified version. The vote fails and bring it back for another later meeting when everybody's here too. That's something that would be perfectly acceptable to do. Yeah, so I mean, I would say that my motion is to approve the proposed interdistrict transfers for 2025-26 with the modification of, we have a 30 student cap for interdistrict transfers out of district. And we keep consistent with what we've done, and we be the district that doesn't do something because everybody else is doing it, but we do it because we are paying attention to what's right for families and because it's the right thing to do.
You want to stay at 30.
Mhm.
You don't want to modify that in any way, where everyone else is at 0 and we're at 30.
No, I would prefer to stay at 30.
When we say everyone else is at 0, do we literally mean like everybody else in Washington
Right.
County is at 0?
Except
Is that
for-
really what it is?
It's not Washington County, it's like Oswego's at 0.
Sure.
Westland Wilsonville, I believe, is at 20. And then Newburgh is at 0. Tiger Tarleton is at 0. Beaverton is at 0.
Then how would we ever get 170 kids in anyway, if everybody's at 0? I mean, how do interdistrict transfers ever even happen anymore?
Right.
Because because enrollment is down and it's not recovering, and they are millions of dollars in the hole, and they have to put a stop there. They have to. That's why they're doing it. They're watching money walk out the door.
Then why are we?
So everybody is approving interdistrict transfers into the district, but nobody is approving out of district transfers.
Then the
math isn't-
170 number is a moot number anyway.
Well, it wouldn't be filled. It never gets filled anyway, from what I understand. And then we have all the building going on to supplement that in the coming years.
Two parts of what's important on that. I get your question, Matt. One thing that's helpful for us, we have to have some way of, when we welcome new families in who need a fresh start, we need to look at our capacity of, especially in our elementary schools, of course, and figure out kind of where we need to be able to, where they can be best served. And then the second thing is you're right. I think about 4 or 5 years ago, those numbers were very important. And I think this is kind of an older school model. The other models that other districts have chosen to do is just to say, we have no number, just whatever. And I think we were still just cautious, even with building, and we're in the same boat. I think, Krista, was what you shared. I'm still leery of, like, seems to be a lot of building going on and a lot of permits in the city. And I'm cautious for our team and our, buildings. So though I keep saying we have capacity, we know have been told all of our capacity numbers. We still have to be vigilant on our end to make sure that we're properly
Yeah.
staffing. And
And I think that's what I was thinking of when I was like, it hasn't been filled. I had my numbers twisted because I know that there has been a significant amount of, but we've never filled the transfers in 100%. But I'm glad I screwed that up and asked the question, because had I not, then I probably would have been like, oh, well, then let's at least do 15, or let's give some the opportunity to make the choice that's right for their family and have us not say no because they don't fit into this box that we define as a hardship, or the state. But when you tell me that, no, all 30 have been filled every year, that to me says something, right? Like these families have a need for that, and that's why they're doing it. It's not easy for families to transfer out of district. It wouldn't be anybody's first choice to do it. It's inconvenient as far as transportation goes. You're risking, if a student's been here for an amount of time, them having to make new friends or whatnot. It's not an easy decision for families either way. So I personally want to believe that parents that are choosing to do that for their kids, there's a valid and good reason for it, and we should be honoring that and not standing in their way of that. And again, if there's families that then choose to just move, then they'll do that. And I don't think that it's right for us to force them to do that. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and belabor this and only to get to.
Is there is the exemption for hardship, is this a state definition? Is this so every district has to have that exemption? It's the same everywhere?
Correct.
And we can't modify that in any way
We cannot.
and
modify
add like a sub-district policy.
No, we cannot. And that is what this motion is
Yeah.
that other practices you can release if you allow it as a board.
Yeah, so, that my motion stands as presented. I move to.
I was gonna say, no, I was gonna help you on that motion. I think what you were just saying is to keep our current level of, release and acceptance. I mean, it's the same thing that we're doing currently is what you said. So that's your motion.
Well,
To remain.
okay. I don't have the previous
Oh, yeah,
group
yeah.
numbers in front of me.
30 students last year.
So, okay. So, yeah,
Do you want to restate it or?
yeah. So then my recommended motion is that we keep consistent with the 2023-24 policies of inter-district ins and inter-district outs.
Is there
No
a
change.
second?
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion carries 2-1. The next board meeting will be just around the corner on March 10th, and this meeting is adjourned.